I'd like to thank Alice for the nice introduction. It always humbles me when people talk about the work that I've done on behalf of our tribal members, and she too comes from the same tribe that I'm from, and particularly on behalf of the women and children at home that I do the work for. And sometimes without the work that many of us do in our own tribal reservations, life can get better, or that there is hope. I'd just like to share with you a little bit of where I come from. I come from a real small community on the Rosebud called St. Francis, and there's probably not more than 300 or 400 people that live in that community. But what's in the community is this old church, and there used to be a boarding school there, a Catholic boarding school that I'm a product of. I went to this boarding school, graduated from it back in 1965. It was run by the Jesuits and Franciscan sisters out of Marycrest in Denver. And so I'm a survivor of the boarding school era. Unfortunately, my children are not. My children are survivors of their mother. And I got 3 daughters. And I've been real blessed, so to speak, with the 3 daughters, and then my oldest grandchildren were all boys. All 3 of the girls had boys when they were born. And then I have my oldest girl only has 1 son, and my second daughter has 3 children, a boy and 2 younger girls. And then my third one has 4, 2 boys and 2 girls. So my youngest grandchildren right now are in 7th grade. They're both girls. Call them Shy Pie and Shy and Autumn. We call her Alms. But I'm also a great-grandmother. My oldest grandson is 22, and he has 2 little boys. And so I get to play with the little grandsons. And I could never really hold them when they were little, because they were just kind of kind of chubby, and stout, and so they would always, but now now that they walk and stuff, they can spend more time with me. So and I come from a Tiosh by a family of people who, back in the 60s and 50s, when we couldn't practice our traditional spirituality, they had gone underground with it. They had gone underground with the pipe and practiced those ways until probably late 60s or early 70s. And then I know that by 1978, the Indian Religious Freedom Act, we were able to do these things out in the open, practice these ways. And I because I was a product of the boarding school, and for me, I went back to the traditional way of spirituality, because I had teachers in my family. I had my mother, and I had my father, my stepfather, and my whole family at large. And so, my family was one of the first ones that brought the Sundance back down to Rosebud in 1960. And they had to go to Washington, D.C. and get special permission to be able to do it out in the open. Prior to that, it was down way back. We don't have as much forest as we do here, but we have a little bit of some trees, and some hills and stuff. So the Sundance was held way out in the country, without, where people knew what's happening, but they couldn't get to it, unless by walking. And so, I come from that rich tradition of again, resistance, and it's what helped me to become who I am, as a woman. And it's come to help me as I grew up, with the boarding school background, and in the years up until I graduated, I was always like a visitor in my own home. I come from a family of 11, and 2 older brothers, and I'm the 3rd one, and I'm the oldest of 6 girls. And so the only time I ever went home was at Christmas time and during the summer for a couple months. So I was like a visitor in my own home, but I hung on to speaking Lakota. When I first went to school, I spoke probably not more than 4 or 5 English words, and so when I first went to school, I remember going to first grade, and even before that, and I couldn't speak English at all. And I remember somebody took over my mother, and I was like 4 or 5 years old, and they came to the door at my grandma's house, and she lived in this little log house, and they asked for my mother, and all I could see was she worked for this nurse, and I could say, work nurse, And so when I first started school, it was a small public school in our town, not more than probably 50 students, and I went, and my mother took me there, and I went, and after 2 weeks, they sent a note home to my mother saying I wasn't quite school ready. I should start the next year because I couldn't speak English. Well, I went home and I was playing around. My cousin Julie was still 6 years younger than I was, so she was at home. So it was okay for me, And so then these people came to visit our house, and my uncles were there. My mom's 2 brothers, younger brothers. And one of them said, I thought she started school, And here my uncle said, she did, you know what? But Tillie, she was so smart. She finished her first year in 2 weeks. So, this is the kind of family that I grew up in. You're rich in just humor, and keeping ourselves humble. And so over the years, I too went on to college, and was probably one of the first Indian women from our tribes in 1970 to get a bachelor's degree in sociology, one of the first to get a master's degree in 1974. Went back and did a doctoral study bit, but I'm one of those people with the ABD behind my back, all but dissertation. And I know it's been like, for the work that I do, working in the shelter and battered women's movement, it's been a plus, but it hasn't been what I needed to do the work that I did do on our own reservation. And so, when we look at who we are as women, we really have to look at where we come from as women.